Hello, hello, hello. Come on in, have a seat, have a cocktail. Welcome to another edition of the Brooklyn Baby Podcast with me, your host, Charlene Sapp. Hopefully everyone had a blessed, wonderful, and productive week. And I just love this time of year. Can I say that again? I just love this time of year. The fall foliage, the cooler temps, even though it's been warm across the country and where I am, like spring-like temperatures, but it's cooling down steadily. And it's supposed to be a cool weekend coming up. Hopefully everyone is enjoying the weather. By the time this episode airs, we would have taken back an hour of time. Time would have gone back. And hopefully we have slept in that Sunday after the time went back and got an extra hour sleep. Yes, so today's topic is an education overview. Education overview is a very far-reaching topic, and I'm just going to dive right in. Education is key. I teach at a middle school. That's no surprise for my listeners, and we are in dire straits. Kids are very disrespectful, disruptive. They come to school not wanting to learn in many cases. I'm not talking about my school. I'm just saying in general, and from what I'm hearing from other teachers. And we are going to be in trouble as a nation if kids don't take education seriously, if parents don't support teachers. Because back in the day, parents and teachers were in unison, lockstep with each other, working together for the betterment and education of kids. Nowadays, parents are disrespectful and checked out of their child's education. But then when a child is failing a class, the parent who maybe didn't return phone calls, emails, messages, all of a sudden they get concerned. And sometimes attitudinal with teachers because they fell asleep at the switch on their end and their child. So that's just my observation. I'm just used to, like, back in the day, I'm a 70s baby, born in 1971. Things were done differently. And I'm being honest, I think as a result of what's going on with the education system, especially in public schools, I know we address kids differently. We don't conduct ourselves with kids as teachers the way I'm accustomed to. Things are different. And because we have a different a different acting type of kid in schools these days, you got to teach differently. You got to react to them differently. You have to talk to them differently. As teachers, we wear different hats. We're educators, we're mothers, we're counselors. Small slithers being having a little bit of a friendship, building relationships with kids. So we wear many hats. Sometimes a nurse, just everything all in one. A disciplinarian. But like I said, I just feel like our whole school system needs an overhaul. It needs more structure. Things are just in disarray. And I'm hearing that feedback from people all over the country. So I'm just going to say this. If any of you have children, just make sure you don't let the education system be the only thing that teaches your child. When I was growing up, I tell all my students every year I have a new batch of students. My parents made me do work on top of the work that my private schools gave. When I went on summer break, my sister and I and our parents, we all took a family trip to Barnes & Noble, and we specifically would go to one of the locations in Manhattan. We had to pick out books, math books, supplemental writing, reading books, novels, and I had to read to my dad 1 hour every day from approximately the age of 6, 7, all the way to I was 10 years old, 11. I had to read to my dad every night. So we would go find high interest books for me that I liked to read, and then we take it from there. I know specifically when I was young, our librarian at the first private school I went to, Berkeley, before they merged with Berkeley Carroll Street School, our librarian, Miss Jones, actually her son was in my class. He and I went to school together from preschool all the way to 12th grade. We went to we transferred to a new private school, and he and I made that transfer together. So he and I and this other young man, Ned Parker, went to school together for all of my elementary, middle, and high school education. Isn't that something? We even have a photo of all of us outside of a brownstone in a neighborhood called Park Slope, where the school is located, on the steps of a brownstone with our two teachers, Miss Rexdale, and I'm sitting on one of the teachers' laps. Because I was just that special teacher's pet. Anyway, so I have that photo. So my point is, when we were on break, when we were at the school, the librarian whose son was a student, his mother was a librarian, and she helped me find these nice books by Charlie Brown, the Peanuts Gang. It was like child-friendly encyclopedias. They had different topics. One edition was about the planets. One edition was about, there were like 4 different big books in this series about things that were, they're like child-friendly encyclopedias with colors, pictures, very child-friendly, and I still have them at home in my library. And when she put me onto that first edition, and I read it to my dad, we went to the Barnes & Noble and secured the rest of the editions. Like some editions, like I said, planets, some were, or the solar system. Another edition was about vegetation, another edition. So each book was about a specific topic, and it would explore that topic in detail in very child-friendly terms and nice graphics and very detailed and laid out. So I was enjoying the Peanuts Gang, but at the same time learning about very important topics. And yeah, so, but then aside from that, then he would help me find, or we would find very interest-driven books and novels that piqued my interest. So if you ever want to get a child to read, I know I did that with my son. He was just not really feeling certain things as far as reading. This is even before I was a teacher, when he was like in elementary, middle school. So I said, okay, someone gave me the advice, well, find what he likes. And when you find what he likes to read, just make sure also get him a library card, because it's free, and everyone should have one. And okay, I knew Michael liked sports. He played sports and basketball and football. I said, okay, well, this is before the football. He was just really into basketball. Elementary, okay, so I found a book about basketball, and that piqued his interest. And it was actually a novel. And from that one novel, it sparked his interest, and I just followed the advice that was told to me. Find books that interest your child. If your child's into fashion, if your child's into mystery, if your child is into whatever the topic. So I found Walter Dean Meyer books, Munster, Slam. Slam's the one one of them is about the basketball. I'm sorry, it was Hoops. He had Munster, Hoops, and Slam. And Hoops was the first one that really got Michael, my son, reading. So I bought all of Walter D. Meyer's books. And it appealed to the African American male demographic. So yeah, whatever your child is interested in, especially if they don't really want to read, find a book on a topic that they would enjoy. So they would pick up a book more readily. And then I took my dad's advice, got a library card for the whole family, got library cards. As soon as we moved to North Carolina, Michael was 5, 6. We all got library cards, and then we would make frequent weekly trips to the library. And I try to follow my dad's tutelage to an extent, not so much, but try to have Michael read to me every now and then. Now, I didn't do it the way my dad did every night for an hour, but every now and then I'll have Michael read to me a little something. But again, I'm not going to lie and say I did it the way my parents did for me. But yeah, people need to be more invested in their child's education. I know my parents were very invested in my education. They wanted a lot for me because they lived through civil rights, that whole civil rights era. And, they saw how, as a people, African Americans came a long way in this country, and they didn't want us to slip, So I remember I went to one private school Packer Collegiate, well, no, the first one was Berkeley Institute from preschool to fifth grade. We thought Berkeley, we were told they were going to close. So me and the other young men, students I told you about who went to the same private school for my entire schooling, a lot of us took the entrance exam to Packer Collegiate Institute. And me, Glenn, and the other kid, Ned Parker, we all passed. And as a result, we all transferred to an even better private school in Brooklyn's prestigious Brooklyn Heights neighborhood that's near the Promenade that overlooks Manhattan, a neighborhood called Brooklyn Heights. So we went from Berkeley, from preschool to fifth grade, and then Packer Collegiate Institute from sixth grade to 12th grade. And then we found out after we got accepted into Packer for sixth grade, for middle school, we found out that Berkeley was not going to close like they said they were going to do. Instead, they merged with another private school and became the Berkeley Carroll Street School. But by that time, me, Glenn, and Ned had already been accepted into Packer. It was a more superior school. And we went there from sixth grade to 12th grade. And, you know, like I said, my parents took education very seriously. I know the neighborhood schools, even though we had a nice neighborhood, a nice house, and there was a nice residential block, East Flatbush as a whole had some pockets of violence and incidents, and the neighborhood was changing for the worse. So my parents did not feel comfortable me going to any of the public schools in our neighborhood of East Flatbush. Now, if you know Brooklyn, there's a big difference between East Flatbush, where I'm from, and Flatbush. Flatbush was more cookie cutter, more Caucasian, especially at that time. I think now it's more diverse and ethnic. However, back then, kids were getting shot, stabbed, getting into fights. So that's why my dad sent my sister and myself to private school. I know my sister and I went to Berkeley Institute, even though she's 10 years older than I was. When she was in high school, I was in the elementary division of the school. And he would drive us to school every day. And I would go home with my sister on public transportation. Then my sister went off she started college at St. Francis College, which was right across the street, ironically, from the private school that I ended up enrolling in. Isn't that how that worked out? The college that she went to, St. Francis, was literally right across the street from the private school that I transferred to for my schooling from 6th grade to 12th grade. So anyway, and then when I transferred to Packer Collegiate Institute 6th grade, my dad would drive me and my mom in. He would drop my mother off at her job downtown Brooklyn at the health department, because she was an executive for the New York City Department of Health. Then my school was in Brooklyn Heights, which was a few minutes away, and he would drop me off at my school every single morning. Now, when I became a 6th grade student, that's when I first started taking public transportation home. Now, if I wanted to get a free ride home, I could take the little walk, the 20-minute walk to my mom's job from my school, and then my dad would because my dad would pick up my mother every day. He would take her into work and pick her up when he got off from his job at the hospital. He worked at the hospital where I was born, Maimonides, which was in a section of Brooklyn called Sunset Park. He was in charge of the blood bank and running different tests on blood samples, running HIV tests, hepatitis tests, doing some phlebotomy, providing blood for transfusions, cross-matching. So that was his job, and he was in charge. He was the supervisor of the blood bank at the largest Jewish hospital in Brooklyn called Maimonides, where I was born in Sunset, Brooklyn. Anyway, so my dad would drive my mother to work and pick her up, and in the morning he would drive me to school. In the afternoons, if I didn't choose to walk to my mom's job to be picked up with her, that was my first time as an 11-year-old taking 2 buses. I was in the 2 fare zone. Take the B41 bus in Brooklyn Heights all the way to Flatbush Avenue, Church Avenue, take the B35 bus down Church Avenue, get off. We lived on Troy Avenue. Yeah. So, and then when I got a year older in seventh grade, then they felt comfortable with me taking the subway. So I would take the Court Street Borough Hall. I could take either the 2 or 3 train, or I could take the D train. One would let me off a little further down Church Avenue than the other, but I had the option downtown Brooklyn or Brooklyn Heights section, which is right by downtown. I could take the D train or the Q train home at the time, or the 2 and the 5. So it wasn't until I reached seventh grade that I could take the train home, because they didn't feel comfortable at that point. My parents, only every now and then, but really they let me take the train religiously. I would say the end of 6th grade, beginning of 7th grade, they felt comfortable. And I was a latchkey kid. I let myself in and out the house. Anyway, but my parents trusted me. But these days, a lot of the kids I teach who are like in 8th grade, 13, 14 years old, their parents don't even trust them to stay home for a second. Different generation. They're not very, a lot of them don't really think things through. A lot of them are not critical thinkers. I think society were coddling kids, so because the schools in my neighborhood were so problematic, my parents sent me and my sister to private school. My cousin and her brother went to a parochial school for most of their education, and they transferred to Brooklyn Tech for high school. My godsister, who was across the street, went to Nazareth, which was a parochial school. I think I told you all about my god family across the street, the Ellis family. Yeah, so my godsister, who was a little older than me, her parents didn't send her to the local public school either. She went to Nazareth, and she ended up being a teacher for Nazareth. And Monique Ellis. Yep. And ironically, she's actually the aunt of DeVal Ellis, who's in Zatima and the show Sister. So yeah, that Ellis family I mentioned that lived across the street, who are my god family, they're actually related to DeVal Ellis. And actually, my godmother is DeVal Ellis's grandmother, and my godfather is actually DeVal's uncle. Because I think I told you in an earlier podcast episode that my godparents are a duo, a mother-son duo. Yep, but their family is just so, like, they're the bomb. So spiritual, so loving. Anyway, so my god sister, Monique Ellis, she went to, she didn't go to the public school in the area either. So certain people I know, because it wasn't safe, we were sent to private or parochial school. But my point is, I digressed. Parents need to be more invested in their child's education. Parents need to keep communication open with teachers. And teachers, yes, we have a responsibility too to keep parents abreast with what's going on with the child. But I know for my school, in Wake County Public School where I teach, parents, we try to assure that they have access to something called Power School, so they can see their children's grades online, so no one has any hidden surprises when grades are due. In addition to that, parents have to stop being the friends of their child and really invest in that education. A lot of kids I teach are athletes, and they just feel that athleticism is just going to get them to the NBA or the NFL. And if you have anyone who's any child of yours or anyone who you know who's an aspiring athlete and has college aspirations, I have something to tell you. Newsflash: grades do matter. And I learned that, I told you all my son was on a full scholarship for football, and I didn't have to pay for college. And my son graduated cum laude. He pledged Omega Psi Phi and had a very successful football career and a free education, and graduated with his bachelor's degree in psychology. And now he's working in tech field remotely, and just, it's a blessing. So anyway, but my point is, if you have someone who's an athlete, let them know grades do matter. Because I didn't know about the NCAA clearinghouse until my son was in his junior year, and we found out about this NCAA clearinghouse. But luckily his grades were on point. But if you don't pass that, you have good grades and a good GPA when you get to your junior, senior year, and you got to go through the NCAA clearinghouse to make sure your grades are legit and good. And, a lot of people we know couldn't go to college. They had to reclass and go to a military school or a JUCO, which is a junior college, to try to get their grades up. And they were like incubator schools. And then once those people's grades improved at either a military school or a JUCO, junior college, then they could try to transfer to a D1 or D2 or D3 school to play sports. That's unfortunate. But a lot of people slept on their grades. They didn't take their grades seriously. They didn't take school seriously. And then when that NCAA clearinghouse popped up junior year, my son didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. So I tell any of my athletes, I said, listen, grades do matter. I said, what you do now in elementary, middle school, it will become who you are. And you want to have good habits with studying and with education early, because when you reach junior year and you have to go through that NCAA clearinghouse, you don't want to be a person who can't graduate from high school or can't go to the college that you aspire to go to play football, basketball, whatever sports it is. It's very serious. And luckily, Michael, of course, he kept his grades up, and he went through the NCAA clearinghouse, and he was able to secure his scholarship. And the only thing that stopped Michael from he went to Winston-Salem State University for a football scholarship, but unfortunately he was targeted at a game. It was a home football game, and some of the opponents from Knightdale High were targeting him because he's a big offensive lineman, and they purposely crashed into his knee. Unfortunately, they used to have colleges like UNC Chapel Hill, ECU, Eastern Carolina University, NC State. Big powerhouse colleges were coming to his high school to see him and a couple of other kids who were D1 football bound. And unfortunately, when they targeted my son during that football game, and they hit him into his knee, and then were laughing after they knocked him down and hit him in his knee, and he had to have get treatment, and he had to seek medical attention, and he was on crutches for a while. It was terrible, but luckily he rebounded back. But unfortunately, those D1 schools that I mentioned turned their backs on my son because they didn't think that he was going to fully recover. We didn't even have the highlight tapes ready. We thought we had his senior year to get that underway. But most importantly, they thought that he was not going to recover from his injury. So the D1 schools that used to come see him in high school and offered him scholarships turned their back on him. And it was very unfortunate. But then the HBCU door opened. North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, Fayetteville State, Winston-Salem State University came knocking at his door. Even a Catawba College in Salisbury came knocking at his door with a full scholarship, but he went with Winston-Salem State, and I credit Coach Boulware for recruiting my son. And he came at a time when a new coach was going to take over, Coach Maynor. He's amazing. He's still coaching in a different university. And they had a motto called Return to Glory, and he took that school to places it has never been, and hopefully we'll see again. They won all the division championships. My son became all-conference, all-American. He was flown out to a special ceremony in Atlanta in 2012. Got to meet football greats, including Doug Williams. Has a photo with Doug Williams and all these notable football players, and signed football and signed helmet from these notable people. And as a family, we all went down to Atlanta for the ceremony. Even his dad went. We got all the pictures. So all of that was due to Michael taking school seriously, us as a family taking school seriously, putting grades first, football and sports second, but that opened up the door. Why pay for college if you don't have to, right? Why pay for college if you don't have to? So it feels great, but I just can't stress it enough. The school system, we need to overhaul. We need to fix it. Kids need a better attitude, need to be reprogrammed, and parents do too. Um, and I'm just concerned about just seeing what I'm seeing in the school system daily. It's very concerning because these kids really are very disrespectful. They are not taking school seriously. The priorities are not where they need to be. Now, I have no problem teaching and running a class because I have a strong presence, and people always commend me for having great classroom management. But unfortunately, a lot of people in the school system who work as teachers do not. And unfortunately, kids are stepping on people's necks. But kids should never feel that they should do that to anybody, whether a person has great classroom management or strong personality or not. I don't know why kids feel that it's okay to disrespect a teacher or disrespect anybody. It's just not cool. But yes, but we are our land of opportunity, free school system. There's some places, some countries I'm hearing that school is not free. Like the woman who does my nails, she's also a friend, and she was telling me where she's from in the Philippines, education is paid for. And I tell her, I was like, wow, and that's probably why kids here take advantage of their free education because, where she's from, everyone had to, either you went to school and paid for it or you couldn't go. But here, I think people got spoiled and conditioned and, and take advantage of the free education and take advantage of it not in a good way. So I just feel like parents, please do your jobs as parents and instill respect in your child, instill a work ethic in your children, instill goodness and values. Be a team with your teachers. And teachers, I'm not saying all of us are perfect either. A lot of teachers that I've observed in different places sometimes put a certain bias with children or have a certain air with children, seem to be afraid of the children they're supposed to be teaching. So it goes both ways. Everybody needs to reflect and try to do better and try to work as one, okay? And just work together. I'm sure I'll probably come back to this topic again. I just wanted to get some stuff off my chest about what I'm seeing in education, just a general overview. But bottom line, people, the world is your oyster. The world is yours. Now, I realize sometimes there are mitigating things that can happen, but for the most part, we all have opportunity. We all have an open road. We all can make a choice to do poorly or try to do our best. The choice is yours. What are you going to do with it? Well, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed, and we will meet again tomorrow. Have a wonderful, blessed, and productive weekend. Bye.